72% of transformations fail. One of the major reasons is ways of working. It just stays superficial and people get burned out. And you don't get to the thing that you should be building. Most of these companies, because they're so large, they have mostly failed transformations. So for that reason, they don't put up a fight when we say, we're going to do this.
Invisible structures. Please share that with us. I think it's one of the best efficiency frameworks, if I may call it that I've seen in my life.
So I will tell you the origin story. In November of 2015, I received the phone call from the managing director of AKQA in the New York office. And he said, look, we are hanging on by a thread with our client, Verizon.
First of all, Munawar, welcome. It is
Thank you.
so good to have you again here. It's been 2 years now, almost 2 years. And we've been in touch and we've spoke and we've seen us in the meantime, but having you here in the office, if we can say back where it all began.
Yes.
It's so exciting. Thank you for coming over. Of course, thank you for bringing your team again. And very excited to the main cause of your coming here, but we're going to talk about it later on. I would like to start off with maybe a simple question, but for me, it always has intrigued me, systems design. You are a systems designer, amongst other roles that you carry. So if you can enlighten me about what it actually is.
I'm happy to talk about systems design ad nauseum. I would say the best way to encapsulate what systems design is, there are in the world today, in the hundreds of thousands of core systems that quietly run the world. These are banks, insurance companies, hospitals, airlines, railroads. And some of these applications are consumer-facing, but many are used internally because it takes an entire orchestration of systems to run these large industries. And each of these different industries has very specific needs. There are very specific use cases. You are creating interfaces that are completely unique to that area of business, area of product, area of service. You are also writing custom code because these are things that do not exist anywhere else. So there is no off-the-shelf solution. And oftentimes these are not the type of systems that you can just assemble as a kit of Lego parts. It's not that easy. So from the ground up, you first have to decide, what is the thing we are building? Why are we building it? What are we solving for? And everything is, at the end of the day, always a combination of products and services. Products and services go hand in hand. And some companies, it's more products that you see. Some companies, it feels like more services, but it's usually some combination of products and services. So when we speak about it, we are always speaking about both things at the same time. And systems design is about understanding, at this moment in time, understanding as deeply as we can, with as many roles at a company as we can. And when you walk into a place, you'll be given a fairly short list of, just talk to this handful of people. They're going to describe the problem and help you come up with a solution. And what we've discovered after many years and many industries, we've worked in almost every area except oil and gas, we have discovered that the more disciplines you can spend time with and spend real time with, it's not a superficial interview. You have to go very deep. And the more disciplines that you can brainstorm with, ideate with, draw with, That's when what the core of the system needs to be, that is when it comes to light. And you have to iterate. You have to iterate. You're not going to get it in the first, second, third, or even fourth pass. It takes many consecutive weeks of working with a broad set of disciplines at the company. And that's when, usually within a few weeks' time, regardless of the industry, the solution starts to emerge. And then you can master plan out, here's the core functionality, here are specific things that different groups need. Where can we reuse? Where have we seen this concept before, whether in the same industry or another industry? And then you create something that is so simple that it should require as close to zero training as possible. When you design modern systems, we should be as close to zero training on the system, because the work itself is quite complex, and we want people to focus on the strategic thinking, the complex calculations and decision making that only a human can do, and let the system be so simple that the interface itself disappears, that everything has been engineered in the right way so it just works. Nothing ever feels broken. The information feels trusted, and you've created something that you don't even realize you're using it to accomplish what you have to accomplish on a daily basis. That is the core of systems design. There are very few systems in the world that actually fulfill on that promise, because you have to fundamentally start from a different place of creation. And I think most projects are not approached in that way. There's a set of activities that people do. There's a lot of box checking, like we talked to these people, we wrote these requirements, we made these screens, let's move into engineering. And what we have found is that does not result in a cohesive, usable system. It results in more of the same that already exists that is broken. So you have to come in with a fundamentally different approach.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And what do you think are the main characteristics of a good systems designer? So the person doing that, what should they have? What are the skills needed?
When we are setting out to find systems designers, because of all the design disciplines, there are fewer systems designers than there are of the other design disciplines. There's brand design, graphic design, user experience design. Systems designers are well-versed in anthropology, sociology, psychology.
Wow.
You have to have breadth and depth in all three. Because what we found, like these systems that we're designing, these are for hospitals, it's for airlines, it's for railroads, it's for banks, right? These are serious systems. It's not retail, right? That also deserves attention, but it is not as life critical as some of the other ones I've described. So when we are uncovering the truth of what we have to create, if I am interviewing you for your specialized knowledge and because you've worked in a certain industry for 30 years, day in, day out, and you know the job that you do, you know it more intimately than anyone else. When I sit and speak with you, I have to sense if you are telling me the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I have to also intuit if we've gone as far as we can on something. Is there something that was left unsaid? Are there areas that we haven't explored yet together? Are there others, you realize the limitations of your own understanding and your own experience. And so you will say, you know what, let me bring in my buddy Jim over here because he just knows a lot more about this. And I think we need that, or I think we at least need to talk about it. It is so exploratory, and you have to want to explore. On the inside, you have to be relentlessly curious and introspective and reflective, and all of these things that allow you to bring the best out of all the people that you are speaking with. Because all of this experience from different disciplines is what it takes for the systems designers then to take all of that as input, process it, continue having conversations, because that often doesn't happen. We will have a 30-minute meeting, and then I say goodbye and you don't see me again. That is often what happens on system redesign projects. And that is an artificial way to design and then engineer and then launch something that is often a multi-year project, right? We're doing a disservice to everybody. So in a systems designer, we require an exceptional level of understanding of humans, of how we interact with each other, how we are inside ourselves, how we interpret information on a screen, how we interpret information that is in the physical world, how all of that comes together so that we can make a good decision for a good outcome for the business that we are in. In a hospital, you understand why that's critical. In an airplane cockpit, you understand why that's important. So that's why it is not easy to find systems designers, because you require a very broad and deep and specialized set of knowledge and skills.
Yeah, thank you for that. Coming out of engineering myself, I'm wondering, do they need to have some sort of technical engineering background? Does it come in handy?
When we are looking for systems designers, we absolutely will want people who, you don't have to have majored in computer science. You don't have to have gotten good grades in some of your engineering classes, but as long as we understand that you have a foundational level of knowledge of database design, of the different coding languages, of the automated and manual testing processes, of infrastructure, we do require some knowledge of that so that you can have productive conversations with experts in those fields. And that you are respectful, you do not overstep your bounds in those regards, but you know enough to ask the right questions and be a very good listener, because everything that these experts within infrastructure, engineering, QA, what they are describing to you is going to have an impact on the system that you are designing. And while we are all shooting for something that is hyper modern, efficient, next generation, it still has to be within the realm of possibility, and it still has to be within the realm of here's the reality. Let's make sure we understand it so we create something that is buildable.
Thank you. And maybe one last thing about this topic. We worked together on the Norfolk Southern project, and we actually met you as someone who is already doing what I felt was systems design before our engineering work started. So if you can just, in few words, let us know about this example, what aspects of system design were present there, and how you were able to execute that.
Norfolk Southern Railroad is the second most complex project of my career, and one of the most enjoyable. When we started that project in 2023, what was important to us, we had lots of information from different people across the organization. And this was all within the shipping container business. And what we realized very quickly is that the information we had was twice, sometimes thrice removed from the work that was happening in the field. And within the first few days of a 12-week engagement, we went out to the rail yards, and what we thought were going to be a handful of interviews turned into 148 interviews within the span of 6 weeks. And that is how every systems design project begins. Because if we don't spend the time sitting with the people who are using the existing systems, watching how they work without asking a single question, we are simply watching how you work. We watch how you click the mouse, where your eyes are looking on the screen, when you pause to write something down with pencil and paper, when you pull out a calculator and do some calculations and then jot those numbers down on that piece of paper, get up to go talk to someone else, make a phone call, type a Teams message. We are watching everything, and we're just shadowing, right? We are little shadows sitting in the corner. We do not want to interrupt you, and we want you to forget that we're even there. We have to watch all of that before we ask you the first question, because we are watching how you interact with these systems. And then you will take us through what feels painful, what feels good, what would you keep, what would you absolutely throw out, what doesn't exist yet, but you've seen somewhere else in your life. You're like, if we did it just like that, it would make it so much easier. And when we ask those questions and do those shadowing sessions across 148 people in different locations, there were 48 terminals, and we were able to visit 12. That allows us to see patterns and to get to a point of clarity, and this is what we need to make, because everyone needs this. And we see that the thing that people are writing down on paper, if that was common across 90% of those interviews, then that's the number that they needed to do their job. That's ultimately what they were trying to get to after navigating through 23 different systems, is what we observed. So that's how, for any project, and specifically Norfolk Southern, that's how the systems design process begins. And everything is a hand sketch before we draw even the first morsel of a screen in Figma. It all starts on paper.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I remember seeing those, the clips from those interviews from your yard visits and everything. It was amazing, and it just kind of struck me there. Hey, for a systems design to be really successful, you have to get your foot on the ground. You cannot do it from your office, just from your computer. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, for allowing us to be part of that process. Okay, second topic that I always wanted to talk to you about, and I don't think we ever had a time for it, are the invisible structures. I remember first time reading that article on Medium, but then even more so, seeing it, being deployed in the first few weeks of the Norfolk Southern project. And I know that idea is older. It came back from before in your career. So please share that with us. I think it's one of the best efficiency frameworks, if I may call it that I've seen in my life.
That means a lot, Marin. Thank you. I think all lasting things are born out of when we witness total chaos. And you think long and hard about there has to be a better way. So I will tell you the origin story of invisible structures. In November of 2015, I received the phone call from the managing director of AKQA in the New York office. And he said, look, we are hanging on by a thread with our client, Verizon. They are on the verge of firing us because after 11 months, we're now in November, 11 months, we don't have a single screen that has been approved for the new Verizon mobile app. And Verizon is used by 1 in 3 Americans, so 110 million people. And that's a vast swath of America. It's people of all ages, people from all walks of life. So you are truly designing for the masses. And to design an application for the masses, you have to have a team of people who is deeply versed in, again, anthropology, sociology, psychology. Because you have to make it so simple that on the mobile app, when you pull that up on your phone, you can completely self-service every single thing that you've ever had to do with your mobile service provider without making a phone call. Because the entire point of even creating a mobile app is so that the calls to the call center stop. The calls are $16 a piece. They last way too long. The tasks are very mundane. And rather than spending, at that time in 2015, Verizon was spending slightly over $1 billion in just customer call center costs. And their prediction was if we created a really, really, really good mobile app experience, we could drop that number down to 700 million. So you're taking out 300 million of calls that should just never happen because it's so simple to do on your phone. So AKQA, one of the most revered design firms in the world, 26 studios, New York and London being the flagship. After 11 months, you don't have a single screen that the engineering team can begin work on. So that's a problematic situation. And nobody wants to lose a Verizon account because if you lose a Verizon account, you lose the New York office, and you cannot lose the New York office if you have 26 studios globally. So I got the call in November of 2015. The call started out, we hear you are the Harvey Keitel fixer of projects that have gone sideways, of clients that are impossible to deal with. And the team has completely lost their morale. Everybody wants to jump ship at this point. Can you come in and fix this? Because you are essentially our last call before we have to accept the fact that we are losing this client and having to lay off the majority of our studio, which at that time was 256 people in just the New York studio. So I stepped into the New York studio mid-November 2015, and the very first thing I did was just understand. We'll talk to each person one-on-one, understand from their perspective, for their discipline, tell me what you think is working, and then tell me everything that is going wrong. Why do we not have a single screen right yet? And what became very clear is the ways of working. Everyone was working by themselves at their desks, redlining Word documents and sending those over the fence to the client. And the client would add more red lines to the red line document and send that back to the design team. And that is a very, very painful and unpleasant way to work. Not only is the relationship acrimonious, not only is there no face to the people doing the work on either side, You're also not working on solving anything real. You are just every day, you're just pouring through these Word documents and these design files, and everything's happening in a vacuum. The other major piece I observed was there was no master plan for the entire application. So I sat down in 72 hours and wrote 600 requirements, aka user stories. Very simply, my approach to that is always, I can see my bill. I can pay my bill. I can sign up for auto payment. Very simply phrased. So imagine 600 of those for every single thing you can do to manage your mobile phone service, no matter where you are in the world, because everyone has the same needs. What I just described were the more basic pieces. More advanced would be, I land at Zagreb Airport and I immediately see a message that says, would you like to have service while you are in Croatia for $12 a day? That's a requirement, right? But that's a little bit more advanced, but that's obviously a scenario we should handle for. So none of that master planning had happened. So no one really knew the full scope of what needed to happen even. And once you have an understanding of the overall set of requirements, you put them into buckets. There were 6 logical buckets for this application. So I carved up the team of 48 strategists, UX designers, visual designers, data analysts, and copywriters into 6 subteams. It's the first time that had happened. And then we didn't have a discussion about it. We just did it starting on January 4th of 2016. That was a Thursday. We got on the bus and we went to Basking Ridge, New Jersey, the headquarters of Verizon. We arrived there at 9 a.m. From 9 to 12, we would share what we had worked on. All disciplines shared what they had worked on. Client side, design side, engineering side. Everyone shared. And then from noon to 5, you sat with your sub-team, with all your counterparts. You sat in the room and worked together. And the red line documents stopped. That was not an option any longer. Nothing got sent back and forth. You met every Thursday and you worked through it together in the room. And you had essentially 4 days between every Thursday meeting. You had 4 days to get a whole bunch of work done without interruption because there were no more meetings allowed. Not a single meeting was permitted. You waited until Thursday. You brought everything and you brought your best work and you brought all your questions that needed to get sorted out, because a question, what we noticed was a question that would have taken 6 back and forth email exchange was now solved within 18 seconds. We had example after example after example of that. And that completely changed the trajectory of what this project was, and then what we could actually accomplish, because by July 7th of 2016, we were able to launch the new Verizon mobile app to 1 in 3 Americans. That is from January 4th to July 7th. Never in the history of Verizon had we accomplished that much design work, that much engineering work, that much QA work in that span of time. And the CMO, Diego Scotti, stood up on stage and he said, this has never been possible before because we have never worked in this way before. No one has said that we actually have to look each other in the eye, stand at a whiteboard together, work through the problems, because some of these problems are so complex that no one's done it before. We don't have a precedent for it because it's hard and you have to work with other disciplines to solve it. So the only way to do that is to take a very human approach. This is a very human, and it's fundamentally, it's very simple, right? Don't send me something when you can just talk to me face to face. Don't go spend hours drawing digitally when you could have just done it on a piece of paper on the table right here, and we could have arrived at it within a few minutes instead of several days or weeks. So all of those cycles of wasted time, money, and effort disappeared. All of them disappeared. But it has to be a conscious choice to say, okay, we have to take a fundamentally different approach to working. So when we figured this out in 2016, our teams, every project since then, because we essentially take on one mega project per year. So since then, we took on Royal Bank of Canada, Prudential Insurance Company, the NYPD, an educational startup, Norfolk Southern Railroad. On every single major program, you have to take this approach of invisible structures. Otherwise, the work simply doesn't happen, and you end up building the wrong thing.
Sure. No, that's amazing. But I'm sure it was not all that easy, right? And I'm sure there was opposition, there was probably resistance within the client. What were those, and how did you overcome that?
I would say we did not have any resistance on the Verizon project because 11 months of frustration to the point of almost being fired, there was only fear. There was only fear on the agency side, and there was only anger on the client side of how can we be at 11 months and have nothing. So I think when we put forward, this is a different way of working, and here's why it will work. I hadn't done it before, but I had enough insight into human nature to have confidence to say, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to work, guys. Yes, we're taking a chance on it, but I'm pretty sure this is going to work. And no one had anything to lose. No one had anything to lose. Because that went well, thankfully. And the only resistance, the only part where I had to change something, I originally chose Wednesdays because I thought it was in the middle of the week and that would be good. Within the first month, the entire design team came to me and said, we need one more day. We need momentum. All day Monday, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. Then we can come together on Thursdays. That was the one major change we had to make. And Thursdays, we have discovered, is the day, which we've carried out on other projects, because since then we experimented with other days of the week. Not a single day of the week has worked out except for Thursday. And on projects since 2016, we take the client through. We say, look, here's how projects are normally run. This is what happens. And we know that 72% of transformations fail. One of the major reasons is ways of working, because it just stays superficial and people get burned out. And you don't get to the thing that you should be building. And if you did manage to build it, you have no adoption, which is why you again fall into that 72% of failure.
Yeah.
So most of these companies, because they're so large, they have mostly failed transformations. So for that reason, they don't put up a fight when we say, we're going to do this. We typically do 12-week projects because it's the right amount of time to get a fairly meaty chunk of something done. And they said, okay, it's just 12 weeks. What do we have to lose? It's just 12 weeks. So you prove it out in 12 weeks. So we have both precedent and the fear of failure, because they've been through so many failures. And it's only 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So they don't fight us on it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And then one last thing. We were there, I mean, Decode and myself, we were there for that happening at Norfolk. Do you think it was the same level of success as it was with Verizon? Applying the invisible structures on the TRIPS project.
I would say on projects where we are in person together, all disciplines, versus a more hybrid model versus fully remote. Invisible structures works best when we are in person because there is no substitute for the humanness of you are sitting a few feet away from me. You have to look me in the eye. You have no choice. and the act of scribbling things out on a whiteboard together, you taking the pen from me and drawing after telling me over and over that you can't draw, and laughing through problems, fighting through solutions, there is a completely different energy. And what we've noticed is projects like the one we worked on together, that was more hybrid. And cognitively for most people, because it's just how it is, they have a harder time putting a face to the work. Because when it's through the screen, it's just harder. Everyone wants to work towards a solution when they have to see you in person. And so anytime we will always run the Thursday model with invisible structures, but it has a far higher success rate when it is in person.
And out of, last but not least, I guess for us here at ECO, the most interesting one today is how do you go about selecting the engineering organizations you would like to work with?
I have been a systems designer for 29 years. And I have worked with a wide range of engineering firms, branding studios, marketing professionals. It's a really interesting place where we sit because our work is systems design, and systems design is nothing without all of these other disciplines coming together. And I think the projects that have been the most fulfilling for those of us who are creating it, and for everyone who is going to be served by these new systems. These are the people who work at the company. But even more importantly, it's all of the people on the receiving end, whether it's a patient, whether it's someone who's receiving a shipping container, whether it is a government service. It is not in the thousands, it's in the millions, and not even the millions, it's in the hundreds of millions of people who are affected by these systems. And we very intentionally are taking on complex. We have what we have, we've been shouldering through it, but we want something that is going to make our work so much easier and make our business thrive and make our customers or patients or citizens have a far better experience than they're having today. So it's a big responsibility. And one of the most difficult jobs in creating a new system is for the engineering team. And not all engineering teams are created equal. We have discovered that just by way of this wide range of projects we've worked on over the years. And what I will say is when we first met with Decode in December of 2023. And we had initial conversations about a project that would be incredibly complex on a very tight timeline with a demanding set of requirements, cannot fail requirements. We had to search for the top 1% of engineering firms in the world. And our search was global at the time. We searched across North America, South America, Asia, Europe, Africa, and created a short list of who is the best of the best, who is known for doing complex do or die type projects, right? Like these types of systems have incredible implications for safety, for financial loss or financial gain. You cannot make mistakes. And in our experience, so many engineering firms that we had worked with, if every nook and cranny of an application had not been specified, then that use case just wasn't handled for. I'm sorry, but as I flipped to page 538, you simply didn't specify that. So we just didn't do it. We just didn't do it. And that is precisely the approach to software engineering that we simply cannot work with. And with all of the firms that we interviewed during that period in 2023, Decode rose to the top and stood out unlike any other firm. Because we met with the founders, we met with the core people who led the different disciplines at Decode. And there was a level of sophistication, a level of understanding, a level of responsibility that came through immediately and is not something that you can ask for. You cannot ask for any of these things. You have to simply feel it in those first conversations, in those subsequent meetings where we start to go deeper on here's what we're going to be building. And it hasn't been planned out yet. There's no blueprints for it. But do both parties trust each other enough that we can make this happen? And Decode is, we simply can't even consider working with anyone else at this point. That's how important the work is that Decode did on a very complex project with incredible time pressure, incredible demands. The types of problems that were being solved on a day by day, right? Completely unexpected, no one planned for. We always build some cushion in, but these impossible things would come up, and the team with total grace under pressure would be able to handle every single time. That is the most rare thing in the world of engineering today.
Thank you so much. I'm really flattered to hear those words. We know each other for 2 years now, but it's really very, very flattering coming from you, as you said, who is a master in your domain and really have worked with a lot of teams. So thank you for those kind words. Just one little question. What puzzles me, how do you even start that kind of search? You said you were looking globally. So what were like the initial criteria? How do you start Googling?
Oh, this is fun. Okay, this is very fun. Gosh. So, search terms, we use all the basic ones that everyone's using. And I studied computer science in the 1990s, back when the internet started. And we had a thing called Top Coder back then. And there are phrases we would use in the Top Coder community. So I would search by some of that, But I will say what led me to Decode, I knew that there is more high caliber engineering talent in certain parts of the world. So I did gravitate toward the Balkan region. And you had me at hello. You had me at hello when I read the copywriting on the Decode homepage, and a few of the interior pages were so well written, and you said exactly what I was thinking. Let me rephrase that. You said exactly what I was going to question. You answered that for me before I ever had to say it out loud. And that's how, that's why you were the first call. You were the very first cold email that we sent, hoping that you might be willing to take a meeting with us on Christmas 2023. And we made that happen. But it was honestly, the copywriting is what differentiates the engineering firms, because right now everyone is saying the exact same thing. In every social media ad, in every piece of printed material, in every poster, on every website, everyone is saying the same thing, and it is the copywriting that differentiates.
Yeah.
Because the visuals, sure, you can do some things with the visuals, but it's the copywriting.
No, thank you for sharing that. For one other reason is because we really invested in that copywriting. I mean, it came out of our experience, so we were not making it up. But we also knew, and thanks to the founders and our marketing team, that the way we present it with words is crucial. And I think a lot of firms neglect that. They either think, hey, we did some great work, it's going to come across anyhow. Or they think, hey, well, I'm not going to spend time and money and resources on copy. And we did just the opposite. We really invested, and we kind of approached that in a very studious way. And it's so great to hear that the biggest engagement for Decode ever came through that. So thank you for confirming that, and thank you for being part of that journey.
I want to give, because I got to speak with Ivan and Carlo.
Yeah.
They were the two primary writers of those pieces, of the pieces that we read. And Sylvia heads up the team.
Correct.
And when I met with them in summer of 2024, we sat down and we worked through some things together in person here, and then we continued the conversation for many months after that. And seeing their process from the very first briefing to, okay, let's talk through some concepts. Let's do some interviews. Let's do some more interviews. Let's do some more interviews with different people. That is how the best copywriting happens. And most firms, not just engineering firms, but especially engineering firms, most firms do not even know the term copywriting. It is an unfamiliar vocabulary word to them. And oftentimes we are explaining what copywriting even is and why it's important. So we usually try to just play a Super Bowl ad and say, look, did you see how good that was? This is how many millions it cost, and it's 30 seconds, and it's the copywriting that got you. So the fact that this investment in Sylvia, Ivan, Carlo, to know the power of words, because everything else, the design has to be really good. The visuals have to be of super high caliber, because that you can sense right away. And in most firms stop right there, right? They think that's it, that, hey, we nailed it. And then the words are generic, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But the human insights and the way Ivan and Carlo they understand the human condition. You have to understand the human condition in order to write in a way that is going to attract a complete stranger from another part of the world to ask you to work on an industry that you've never touched before.
Yeah.
So I mean, the writing was so good that we took screenshots of it so that we could hold it onto it as an example of here's how you write. We use that as examples with clients to show them this is how you write, because it was extremely rare for us to see that. So kudos to you, to Marco, to Mario, as the founders and founding team, to just know that this is how you present yourself to the world, that you have to be yourself and be deeply human to attract the right kind of business.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think the biggest kudos there goes to Marco, who had the vision in 2019, I think, where we were a small group of 15 people, very engineering minded, everybody. And it was his wisdom, if I may say so, that prevailed. And he said, no, we have to invest in our brand. We have to invest in web, but not just like putting out nice pictures, but really doing it systematically. And that's when it all began. And that led us to this. So I think it was his original idea where that seeing that not happening in a lot of similar companies where you have the engineering founder or founders, like having a company and then growing it, who are sometimes neglectful about marketing and copy and stuff like that. I think that for him was a big step to do it, not just financially to start investing, but also mentally setting himself apart from that way of thinking and entering into this new one that really enabled then Decode to grow and to come to the project where we met.
The most incredible chance meeting that may not have been total chance.
Yeah.
all the right steps had led up to that.
Correct. Munawar, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so great hearing you and listening to these amazing stories.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.